would you say a Standard Chartered bank has evolved through the crisis that may well be somewhat different from the way that you have evolved?
Well, if you look at the footprint where we overlap with each other, I think we've evolved very similarly. And indeed, that's not entirely surprisingly, because the Asian region has a dynamic to it, and the Middle Eastern region has a dynamic to it, that gives both of us, and other banks of course, considerable opportunities in the region. It's no surprise that our performance, and I think that's mirrored in theirs, has been helped by the strength of those economies.
Just drill down a little bit on some of the regions. The US you've spoken about, you've got a domestic commercial banking business, you're going to continue with that, you're not going to go back into consumer finance. South America, your competitors there are some of the larger domestic players, the Banco Itaú and so on.
Indeed.
So what's the game plan for South America? And it's not just the domestic players, but it's also the Spanish players in South America. So that's a different atmosphere in a way. So what is your reading of that region?
And again, you have to look at it market by market. I mean, in Mexico, we are the fourth largest bank in a quite consolidated market. In Brazil, it's becoming more consolidated, and you have 2 or 3 very big local domestic players. Other markets are rather different. Our footprint in Latin America, which is one which we have acquired over the last 10 to 12 years, rather differently from our Asian Middle Eastern ones, which have been built up over many decades, focuses particularly on Brazil and Mexico, though in Central America we are the largest bank in a number of those countries in terms of the region. So the presence differs, but it's become quite significant, and in terms of the group performance, it's I believe it's a business that over time should be something like 1/10 of our profits.
Given the fact that you've been spending a lot of time in, building your OECD presence, one country that's not talked about very much is Japan. What is your reading of Japan, and what's the game plan for Japan?
Well, because recently we've not been building our OECD presence. We have a strong footprint in the UK.
That's what you said, yeah.
A relatively small bank in France, and a good operation in Canada. Those are, leaving aside the US with the special circumstances that we've talked about, those are our other 3 OECD markets. The only one that's really large in terms of the group's total performance is the UK. Japan, the world's second largest economy, very slow growing of course, I think likely to continue to be a slow growing market. A market where international banks have always found it difficult to get meaningful share. We have a niche strategy in Japan, and I think that's well tailored to a realistic assessment of what you can and can't do in Japan as an international player. So we focus particularly on premier banking for those customers that want an international capability, and some commercial banking, again focused on clients with an international need, and of course corporate and wholesale banking and some trading activities in Tokyo.
China has played out very interestingly for you. You've spent a lot of time in China, and the numbers have started to show, but not necessarily in the organic domestic business as it were. It's a lot of trading, the forex business and corporate investment banking more than domestic. You're also reducing your deposit rates in China. There seems to be a kind of a shift in thinking in terms of how China is going to be playing out. So what's your take on China?
My take on China is first of all a long-term perspective. We've been in China since 1865, and as I like to tell my colleagues, we've been there for something like 140 years. We plan for the next 140 years, and we're doing a number of different things in China. First of all, we've got our own network, which is growing quite rapidly. We have the largest network of any foreign bank. We incorporated it a year or so ago, and that's doing a wider and wider range of business. It focuses on what you can't be as a foreign bank with some 80 outlets in China, is a mass retail bank for obvious reasons. So we focus on a premier customer base, corporates, both domestic and foreign, and businesses with international connectivity. That business is growing very rapidly. The income stream is growing very rapidly. As we open branches quite rapidly, of course, there's an element of investment going on all the time, which is coming through the P&L, but that business is performing very well. And then in addition to that, we have our 19% investment in Bank of Communications, which is China's fifth largest bank. We have over 16% in Ping An, which is China's second largest life company. We have other ventures, we have other bank investments, and then recently started a new insurance joint venture. So the point is we've got a number of different investments in China, and we take the long-term view. We believe that this market is going to continue to grow for the next generation and beyond, and as the economy grows, the financial services market will continue to evolve. The regulators clearly welcome our participation in the market, and we are determined to do that in a way that contributes to the Chinese economy, because I think that's important over the long term, to see the business that we do as making a contribution, because then we're welcome and our business grows. One of the most interesting initiatives that we undertook, and we were the first foreign bank to do this, was to open rural banks in China, and we've now opened 5.
Was that in response to the government asking you to do that? Or?
It's very clearly in response to the government's very clearly expressed priority for financial services to be developed in rural areas, and we thought we can play a part in that. And we don't do this out of some kind of charity budget.
Well,
we believe that this is profitable.
It's like a loss leader.
No, it's not a loss leader. When you first open a new branch, of course there's an element of the J-curve effect, but actually these businesses are going better than forecast.
But it's only in China that you're doing that, because it's not something that you can replicate in other markets, so the approach would be different at least.
Well, I think, again, you have to look at it market by market, and China has a very particular policy priority for perfectly clear reasons. I mean, the rural areas are very large, and indeed some of the towns in the rural areas are, by the standards of other countries, quite large towns or cities. But this is an important initiative, and to repeat, it's not just the philanthropic budget, it's not just brand development, this is a serious business opportunity.
But some
I
other...
mean, the parallel in India, I suppose, would be say that we work with microfinance companies. We work with a number of different microfinance companies, providing funding, providing technical support, and so forth. Because again, that's an important. And again, we do that as a business initiative.
Right, but is there a model on that front? That's really, microfinance is a completely different business from traditional banking. And would you say that HSBC has got any critical mass, any DNA within the organization to build that into a real pillar eventually? Well,
I think actually I don't think microfinance is completely different from other banking. Well, the way I'd put it is it's kind of one end of the scale, and if you like, you have small business lending, which we do a lot of, and then medium-sized businesses and large businesses and so forth. Well, microfinance is right at the start of that, and you're dealing with individuals or small groups of people who are putting their first foot on the ladder of commercial involvement. And that's what's exciting about it. You are enabling people who have not been part of the economic mainstream in any meaningful sense to become part of it. And some of them will grow into small businesses that will grow into larger businesses. So I see this as part of a spectrum, and it's one end of a spectrum, or the first rung on a ladder, however you like to describe it. That's what's exciting about it.